Hi, everybody. Welcome to the New Columbia Movement YouTube channel. My name is Justis. We're going to be starting a new series on the channel talking about faith journeys. A little way for everybody in the audience to get to know, put a face to the name. You hear us a lot talking on the stream or on some of the YouTube videos that are coming out. Sean's been doing some shorts that you guys will be seeing in the future as well. So that's that, and we're going to be talking with Sean's going to be the first one up today. Thanks for him for showing up. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm Justice again. I was on the podcast episodes early on. I haven't been on there much because I'm a dad and a husband, and I work, unfortunately, so uh, it gets a little tied up. So I haven't been on the podcast much lately, but I'm going to be hosting, and maybe eventually too, Sean might be also hosting these faith journey stories with us as well. I'm a Roman Catholic, 28 from North Dakota, um, and we'll get right into it. Let's just we'll introduce you to Sean here. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, in case people don't know, and a little bit about you quick.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Sean. A lot of you probably already know me, or have at least seen my face on some of the YouTube shorts that we've been putting up. I've also been on a few podcasts, like Justice, and I've been on one or two, I think, with you as well. So, uh, I am originally from Northern Virginia, currently living and working in North Carolina. Born and raised Roman Catholic myself. Joined up with the movement September, October-ish of 2020. And I've been with them ever since. And I'm excited to see where we're going to go from here. I think it's going to be an awesome organization. I love the people in it for sure, and I'm excited to see what we can do. So,
right. Well, we thank you for joining us, and with the new series here, and just like I said, we're just going to open, letting the audience, letting you guys see a little bit more about us. And then I personally just love conversion stories. So I listen to these on other YouTube channels or other podcasts, and it just gets me going and gets me fired up. No matter what it is, I love just seeing these conversion stories. They're inspirational to me. So,
yeah.
so Sean, you said you are Roman Catholic, cradle Catholic, correct?
Cradle Catholic. Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about conversion stories. It's like, well, is that the right word to use or not?
Right,
And
that's gonna be it's gonna be a little difficult for some of us because some of us, we've been Catholic the whole time or been good, strong
yeah.
Christians, but
Well,
uh,
but I think there is some merit to the word, because at a certain point, at least the theme that I've seen with a lot of the guys in our organization is that we all have a quasi conversion story. Even though I was, and you, I think as well, right? We're both Roman Catholic, cradle Catholics.
right,
Um, at a certain point, you get to the level of independence where you do make that decision. Is this something that I'm going to pursue in my life, or am I going to kind of just embrace the world? And so you do have this like little conversion within you, even though it's what you know already. um, you have to embrace it. You kind of have to choose the lifestyle. So I think it fits.
right. And so when would you say that you kind of started to realize, hey, I'm I don't know if it was in your teens or your early 20s or when it was for you, but when was the time where you kind of started realizing like, hey, this is kind of degenerate, this secular world that we're in, or what kind of like woke you up and started realizing, hey, I need to be a better Catholic? Do you remember do you kind of remember what would be like that first thing that hit you?
I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who have like that one day where it just kind of hit them, and I don't think it was that for me. Um, I I was involved in my faith from a younger age. I kind of outgrew it my latter high school years, and then as I started, moving out, working on my own, being kind of independent. The early years of that realm wasn't necessarily there wasn't that strong embrace of my faith. I still would have been considered pretty socially conservative. I'd still very much aligned with the Catholic faith. I never denied it, but I didn't necessarily live it to the extent that I should have been. So for me, there never really was one big moment. It was kind of, I remember like from a very young age, I was into like politics. Like, well, I would be like 12, 13 years old. I'd be driving in the car with my dad, and we'd have the music on. I'd be like, Dad, Mark Levin's on. Turn to Mark Levin. you
Right.
know. but most people can't stand him because of his voice. But I didn't care. I got over that because I was like, I want to listen to Mark Levin. I want to
Right.
hear about what's going on in politics and stuff. And so I've always had that kind of buy-in into being interested in what's going on a cultural level, political level. Um, it wasn't until probably my earlier 20s, starting around 22, 23 years old. I'm about to be 25. So when I really started to kind of tie it back into Catholicism, Christianity, traditional Christian moral principles, and all that. And I was like, there is a correlation here, and that kind of slow. And it's the journey's not over by any means. I've got a lot to learn. I know that for sure. But I definitely saw that there was merit in it all. So
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about the politics and all, because that's what you see a lot with younger people nowadays, especially I say in the Zoomer class, which you're in, and even younger. They get into politics or they're interested in stuff along those lines. And then also, what comes in with that is okay, if you're going to be into politics, there's also religion in a lot of politics as well. And religion can be political in itself. So
yeah,
then you start to draw the lines together and say, okay, what does it mean to be just basic here? What does it mean to be a liberal? What does it mean to be conservative? And then you got your sections from that. And what does it mean to be actually conservative or actually liberal, communism, and all this? And I
hmm
just think that's interesting that you talk about. I think that's common as well. You just see a lot of the times you see people that come in with thinking they're going into politics and then they start breaking down into it into the nitty gritty of life, and then you're like, hey, religion's got something to do with all this stuff too, because it all
yeah.
ties in.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic, especially in like American culture, because there is that embedded idea. There's kind of this like quasi alignment with most people with, I guess you would call it a libertarian ideology, where you see the separation of church and state as kind of intrinsic. And I did too for a while, so there was like politics, culture, all that kind of stuff over here. And then, there's my religious life over here. And it's like, it, I didn't make that connection, that correlation, when I still very much bought into like a separation of church and state, I guess. And so when I started to realize, especially learning more about the nature and the history of Christendom, and just general like understanding better, at least in the Catholic Church, of Catholic social teaching, social policies, and all this, and I was like, they can't be on these two separate tracks. They're not like parallel organizations. It is the combination of the two, of the church and state, as a matter of fact, that seems to be the best organization for society, so far as I can tell.
So when you said you kind of grew out of the church as a young age when you got into your teens, and then you kind of came back into it a little bit later in life in your early 20s. Was there anything that led you wanted to lead away from Catholicism, or did you know the whole time that I'm a Catholic and I'm gonna stay being a Catholic?
Um, there was never much exploration into other Christian religions, so much as like part of my family is Southern Baptist, so I have a loose familiarity with it. Um, Again, I grew up and I was involved as a Catholic as a kid, and so it was always very much and I think I had pretty good faith formation through doing CCD as a kid. I was in a program called Conquest, which was run by the Legionaries of Christ, which I know they're kind of a organization, but it was good for me. I was in a pretty traditional conservative diocese, and so I think I had really good faith formation that kind of gave me the bedrock and the understanding of my faith that I feel a lot of kids don't get. They kind of go through the motions and they grow up, and then that's often why they leave their faith. It's because they never got that good formation in their faith. So I had a baseline to work from when I really started diving back into the whole idea of it, and it was easy for me, and I love all of our Christian brothers and sisters in Christ, but it was kind of easy for me to see that like this is, I'm already on the right track. This is kind of, we've got the foundation here with the Catholic faith. Um, just the hundreds of years of church doctrine, the early church fathers, the writings, the philosophy, the theology, all of it that goes into it. I mean, it's just all very sound to me, and I could spend a lifetime, trying to learn it and understand it all. And yeah, I might only scratch the surface. I mean, that's how I said the breadth of what exists, and what's there to access. And so I'm very comfortable in the Catholic faith, and I'm very comfortable in understanding that this is the objective truth to me. Excuse me, not to me. This is the objective truth, right? To me would be subjective. This is the objective truth, and so it's I it's easy to see how much more fulfilling life becomes, how much more purpose driven life becomes as I align myself more and more with that truth.
Right. I want to go back quickly to something you brought up, talking about how you grew up in a good traditional conservative Catholic family, and you were able to have um, good catechesis when you were growing up. And you said that a lot of people may not get. I think it's interesting to talk about. I know we're getting a little sidetracked a little bit, but we're just going with it. I think it's interesting to talk about though when you the first generation of people to go through Vatican II were the Gen Xers, their whole lifetime, right? So their whole lifetime, it was this kind of the wild, wild west of the Catholic Church. Nobody really knew what was going on with all these new rules. Now you can say Mass in English and you can turn around, face the people, but you can still do it in Latin. You can still do it at Orientem if you want. And I just
Yeah.
think it's interesting that you bring that up because I think a lot of the times, because my parents are Gen Xers, I think what we see with the younger millennials and the Gen Z, a lot of the times their parents had poor catechesis, so then they'd pass that on to their children. And
Hmm.
what they do for catechesis is okay, you're gonna go to CCD. Nancy, the boomer, is gonna be teaching you Catholicism.
Yeah.
What's she going to teach you? I don't know. Probably everything else that they teach you at the Lutheran CCD or whatever they do on Wednesdays as well, and stuff like that. So I think that's interesting to bring up that how you say you had a even though you might have strayed away just a little bit in your teens, you had that good solid bedrock foundation of strong catechesis growing up in your early years, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and it's helped establish that foundation because I think I've kind of watched the watched the Overton window just speed by me, and I'm like, what's going on here? You know, I'm still rooted in my values, and so you become less. You know, as society progresses further and further off down the road to ultimately jumping off the cliff here, it's like just holding these traditional values that didn't seem so extreme a decade or two ago
Right?
is coming off as more and more extreme. It's insane. And so even like you're talking about just the kind of loose catechesis that most kids get these days. I just saw an article or a headline. I didn't read into the article the other day where it was like this Catholic school board voted to raise the pride flag for Pride Month. It's a Catholic school. You know, like how far? And you know, this is where parents are sending their these Catholic parents are sending their Catholic kids to get Catholic catechesis. It's like there's such a divide now, even in the Catholic Church. And I think most Catholics know that. That's why you kind of have that dynamic of the trad cats versus the what you would call the I don't know Novus Orderites or whatever you want to call them, right?
Right.
But there's this just general schism. It's and I'm sure there's some quote that can validate what I'm trying to express here, but like it, I can't remember who said it, and I can't remember the quote exactly, but it's like, you know, all arguments are ultimately theological. Was this quote, and it's very real. It's very true, and I think that when we see this rupture in the church, we talk about how politics is downstream from culture. Well, culture is downstream from the authority of the church, and if the church is not, you know, fulfilling its role in the world, it's kind of you're kind of seeing the logical conclusion of that.
Right. And I think it's interesting, yeah, that um, we could get into all the reasons. We could talk about it for hours about why some places in the world the Catholic Church is doing one thing, some places are doing it another thing. I thought this is supposed to be the Catholic Church. They're all supposed to believe one thing. What's the deal with that? You might hear
Yeah.
from a Protestant or somebody else, but there's I'll just say one part. One part's money, but we can get into that for hours and hours and hours. It depends on who you talk to. You'll get a different answer from everybody
Yeah.
too. No matter who you ask, of
Yeah.
you want to ask a question about the Catholic Church and the hierarchy of the church, you're going to get a different answer from everybody. So,
Yeah.
uh, you mentioned Rad Trad and Novus Orderites. I think you said. What would you say? because now you are getting into classes of Catholicism. What would you say you are if you had to name
Uh,
yourself?
an aspiring trad cat, traditional Catholicism. Yeah, I'm kind of in it. So the area I'm in right now, which is coastal Carolina, doesn't have a great community for traditionalism in the Catholic Church. There is one church nearby, um, and when I say nearby, it's about an hour and 20 minutes from where I am, and it is the excuse me, it's not a cathedral. It's a what's the
Like
word I'm looking for?
chapel?
Basilica. Excuse me,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
basilica. Yeah, so there's a basilica, and it's the only one that has a Latin mass, hour and 20 minutes away. And I went to a just a morning Novus Ordo mass there. I want to say about 8 months to a year ago, and I didn't even feel like I was in a Catholic church. I mean, it was a beautiful basilica. You know, it looked very Catholic. Everything was like it was exactly what you think you were looking for
Right.
until the celebration of the mass. And I was like, the priest looked like he was watching a fly on the wall the whole time. He wasn't participating. It was like as minimal as could be. It was very much made up of a lot of like hands off the wheel boomers and Gen Xers who seem to be doing it more out of a social club esque environment rather than like being there for the true presence. And it was so off putting. And so it was. I was like, oh my goodness. And so the parish I attend now is just here locally. Um, he's there's a great priest, a great pastor there, which is what keeps me going. But the community there is very much the same. Unfortunately, it's this very hands off the wheel social club um, of the older folks. And interestingly enough, I've noticed it seems to be the younger families at these parishes that are more traditionally oriented. Like, we've got here's a black pill story for you, but I went to go receive communion to receive it on the tongue, and I was denied by a female Eucharistic minister wearing a cat shirt, receiving it on the tongue. Yeah, she was wearing a cat shirt with some, attempted witty phrase about her cats or something like that, big green shirt. And I was like, what? Like, what world? I was denied communion on the tongue. And so I've noticed that this parish that I go to is like the younger families, the women are wearing the veils, the kids are all very orderly, well behaved. And it's like they're, going all the way around the church just to get in line to receive from the pastor. They all receive on their knees, it's all very reverent and stuff. And I don't see that from the older generations in this parish. So it's interesting to see. And I know for a fact, because I was listening to a podcast today, can't remember the channel off the top of my head, but and they were talking about how COVID was like a big step in the right direction as far as people getting more traditional in the church.
Right. The bishops shut down the churches. All these traditional Latin Mass parishes kept the doors open, and people
Yeah,
started looking, and they said, "Wow, I've never." A lot of these people never even knew there was Latin Mass. A lot of people never seen one, been to one, and they're like, "Wow, this is beautiful." I remember the
yeah,
first time I went to a Latin Mass. It was only about 2 years ago. Um, it was at SSPX Parish,
okay,
and it was just I had no idea what to expect. And I even went to a Catholic middle school, and
okay,
I didn't even know there was Latin Mass still,
really, wow,
really. And so remember going to this SSPX Parish and uh, just just seeing how everybody. First off, the first thing you notice that everybody's dressed appropriate for Mass.
no,
Everybody's
no
either
cat shirts,
everyone's no cat shirts. Everybody's dressed in their Sunday best. It doesn't matter if in some people's Sunday best, it doesn't matter what it is. You just can tell everyone's dressed in their
yeah,
best. Women are wearing dresses, they're wearing the veil, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome, right?
yeah,
And then just, yeah, the whole experience of Mass itself, and I'm like, this is why wasn't I taught this? Why did nobody tell me about this? This is beautiful.
yeah,
And I thought that was interesting how you talked about how it's the younger crowd. That kind of goes back to those Gen Xers or those boomers during Vatican II, where it's we're gonna do things completely different now. Just do whatever you want. It's gonna be, it's the I've heard other people say it's the hip and groovy way, man, in the '60s, the groovy way, the groovy new Catholic Church. We're
Yeah,
not gonna do all of that stuff from 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. We're not gonna do that stuff. We're the cool Catholic Church now.
happy-go-lucky Jesus. Yeah,
Right. So I think that's what you see a lot with. I really see it with the Gen Xers, the people that were probably in their 50s now. Um, I mean, you see it with them big time just because that's from when they were born, that's all they've had. And now it's starting to kind of come full circle, especially I think you can see a lot of these kids that are becoming, very Orthodox Christians now. I think you can accredit it to just being online and actually doing research. There's just so much more. And then once you start digging into Catholicism and just start reading about it, that's kind of what happened to me. I just started
yeah,
digging into it because, like, if I'm a Catholic, I want to know what I actually say I believe. And once you
right.
start digging into it, and like you said, you said it earlier. There's just so much to learn, so much to study, and it's all so
Hmm.
beautiful. And it's just, I absolutely love it. And I think that's what you're starting to see with the younger generation. They're like, why did we change it? Why aren't we doing the mass the same that it's been for forever? I'm not trying to dog on Novus Ordo Mass, but
Yeah.
that's just what we're talking about now. I don't have a huge problem, I guess, with the new mass, but I would prefer it, the way it's
Yeah.
been for 1900 years.
Well, and I think too, you're kind of getting to a point of you're seeing it everywhere, but there's this microcosm of the church too of this kind of hyperpolarization. And so when you have these younger people in the church, right, these people aren't necessarily here for the same reasons at the social club, but they're here because they choose to be here and they want to be a part of this. And so it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's an all or nothing, but it's like if you're there, you want it, you want it. Like you're there because you want the real deal. You don't want some wish-washy hodgepodge, like lukewarm version of whatever you profess to believe in.
And why would
Because
you?
no. And so people are kind of making these decisions. They're like, yeah, this is what I believe, so let me believe it. If you're not going to believe it, there's very few people who are willing to just kind of, they exist, but there's very few people from what I've seen who are just kind of willing to exist in the middle and not go one way or the other. In politics, more so, I think you see that. Maybe not so much these days, but in religion, it's not. At least in the Catholic Church, I don't see it all that much.
Right, right, right. And then, yeah, just like to one more note on that. I would say, I guess I asked you if you're what'd you call yourself? Did you call yourself a Rad Trad? Or did you just call
Aspiring Rad Trad.
Yeah,
I'm not there yet.
I'll call myself a Rad Trad LARPer. That's fine. I'll be called that for now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get I have a small child. I can go to they do offer the Latin Mass at the cathedral in the diocese of where I live, so that's cool.
Mhm.
But so but unfortunately it's either 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back. Right at 2 o'clock, you have an infant. That's like during lunch and nap time all at the same time. It's brutal. So
Yeah.
right now I don't want to say we're settling, but we are for the local Novus Ordo that we go to. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um what do you think your faith has changed about you in your later years? Do you think is that kind of would you say the faith kind of helped you, inspired you to maybe uh join an organization like this?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there was a period of time around when COVID hit where I was kind of going through I don't want to call it a crisis, but it was definitely like this very real, like I was getting into, I was really diving headfirst into my faith because I was kind of lost and confused. And I was like, not happy with the way things were for me at the time, and it was like, I was really lacking that drive and that purpose. And it's like, man, I got to fix this. It was, during the COVID time, we were doing a lot of telework and I was having a lot of time to think. I was already, coming to the realization that like this whole world is aligning and if not already aligned against the values that I hold. And so it was this very like, it felt like I was kind of bearing the weight of all that on my shoulders. And, that caused me to have quite a few, not mental breakdowns, because I never really lost my, like, my faculties or anything like that. I was very, in control, but it was like it was a it was a it was a deep experience, and it was like a decision point for me, and some bigger matters that I'm not going to really get into. But um, it was like I have to find this, like, I have to find a way to fulfill this drive that I have to do something better. And it was actually funny, and I told this to Nick, the co-founder, when I was initially interviewing with them. I said, I had this idea. I wanted to make an organization like this. I had no way to know how to go about it, right? But yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to do. And it just so happened that I was listening to a Rights and Duties podcast that Nick was on, and Nick will say that he's like, "Oh, I didn't do so well on that podcast." I was like, "You sold me." I listened in, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is exactly what I wanted." And so, I was fortunate enough to get in and get involved, and I kind of thrown myself into this whole thing head first. I was like, I'm gonna make this. I want to make this organization successful. Um, Not for my sake necessarily, although it is good to have this kind of outlet for that driving purpose that I have to make change in the world as best as I can, or at least in a few people's lives. Um, but also for the sake of just the culture in general, there has to be something there to provide this safe haven, right? This Benedict option almost that we talk about often, for people to kind of flee to. And I found my sanity in this group too, because it's like, and I know I'm not the only one to say this, because many people who've come on board have also said the same thing. It's like, I'm fine. I thought I was crazy, but I'm finally amongst people who understand. We're all seeing the same thing. And if you kind of find yourself isolated in the world right now, it's going to be with holding, the beliefs that we do. It's going to be rough, because it was rough for me. And it's like everything is everything that I'm feeling right now, I understand about the world. Nobody seems to line up with me. Where am I? Where do I fit into all this? How can I change, make a change? And coming together in this community, I mean, it's helped out a lot.
Well, I knew I wasn't crazy. Everybody says I was, but I knew I wasn't. I knew I was right. So it was just trying to find other people who were right as well. But
What
yeah,
a Chad.
um, yeah. So I'll get into. We'll talk about. You said a lot there, but I was just going to ask you. I'll give you a softball question. Maybe it's not though. What's your favorite part about being Catholic?
Favorite part about being
You know what? I take
Catholic?
that back. That's not a softball question because I mean, there's so much to pick from. How can you pick one? I guess.
Yeah. Well, on a theological aspect, I would just say having the sound doctrine, the complete and objective truth. Um, on a less rigid aspect, I would say, especially especially in the more traditional community, just the tradition of it, the community and the tradition that surrounds it. That's more of an aesthetic appeal, right? I think that kind of comes naturally with having the objective truth, because it all kind of aligns. But yeah, I think the aesthetic of just the tradition, the beauty, the community that kind of surrounds it. I'm going to kind of throw three in one there, because I think they kind of all work in tandem. I was just recently, a couple weeks ago, in Savannah, and I had the pleasure of getting to visit the cathedral there in Savannah, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, and I'd love the opportunity to go. I know my excuse me, my family's had the opportunity to go over to Rome and see some of those beautiful cathedrals, and there's just a lot of beauty. There's a lot of beauty in the church, and I think that beauty is important. Kind of the world is surrounded by a lot of ugliness right now, but you can still find that beauty. I find it in the Catholic Church. So
Right. I a lot of the times my wife asks me what I want to do for a vacation or whatnot, and a lot of the times I used to say I never had any wants or desire to go to Europe. I just I had never had it before, but now recently I'm like, you know what? I would love to go there just to see the architecture of the
yeah,
cathedrals. I just want to see the churches. That's literally all I want to go there. I want to see the
yeah.
churches. I think it'd be cool to see the history of Rome and stuff like that. But before, yeah, I was just like, I never had that. My idea for a vacation is going out to the water park. So in Wisconsin.
You could also go to Europe and do the Way of St. James, that trail that goes through. That'd be real
Right.
cool. I don't know if you've seen that movie about the guys who do it, but
Oh,
that
no,
looks
I
cool.
haven't.
put myself on the spot here because I don't know the name of the movie.
Oh no, that's
Uh,
right.
I might just be called The Way of St. James. I don't know. It's the
True.
trail. It's the trail, but
Right.
yeah, there's a good movie about it too. Definitely worth a watch. You can live vicariously through them for now.
That's good. Um, well, do you got anything else you want to discuss in, or anything else you want to talk about
No,
Catholic faith?
no. I think we hit up on a lot of good points. I'm excited to see where these faith formation interviews go. I know we got a lot of guys in the organization with a lot of different stories. You know, um, some a lot more radical than my own. I guess I don't know what you would call it, but
Right.
it's good. I think it's good for people, for those of you who are kind of watching and tuning into this, to see that like maybe you don't have any interest in or joining the organization or something like that, but just kind of find your community. Find where you can associate with people like mind. It's gonna help you out. It's gonna help you out a lot. It's helped me out. So
Find a good
proud to be here.
church. Find a good church. Don't go to the church that's you're just going to go to the church that's just a couple minute drive away. Even though we love to support our local parishes, obviously, but try to find a good church, find a good priest. You'll find good people there. That's
Yeah,
all I have to say to end on that. Well, I'd say to finish up, we'll do the Our Father. If I do the first half in Latin, can you do the second?
sure can.
Okay, well, let's pray then. Nome Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum. Adveniat regnum tuum. Fiat voluntas tua sicut in cielo et in terra.
Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris. Et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libere nos a malo. Amen.
Nome Patri et Filii
Patri
et Spiritus
et
Sancti.
Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
All right. Well, thanks,
All right.
Sean. Thanks for being
Thanks for
on.
having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to everybody for joining us on the YouTube channel for the New Columbia movement. We'll be bringing more of these as we go, and hopefully we'll have the founders on eventually, and then maybe, who knows, we'll get some people maybe outside the organization that would like to talk to us as well. So,
Coming for you.
all righty. Well, good. All right, everybody. God bless.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. I really hope you got something out of this video. And if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing down below. As we continue to grow and expand, you can expect a lot more content coming from us in the future. And if this kind of content interests you, consider checking out our podcast playlist, where we go into a variety of different topics in much more detail that you may enjoy. Thanks so much, God bless, have a great day.